Swami Vivekananda has brought Sankhya philosophy, which we are learning in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2 and chapter 30. Okay, but basically he is focused on Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So all of us need to think that generally when we speak of these three, which we learned in Foundation Vedanta also, that it is not nothing to do only with food, but it's an overall aspect. So then tamas is typified, basically, typically understood as darkness. How do we say tamasoma jyotirgamaya? So it's darkness. And it also means inactivity. It means stop, inertia also. So there is stop, there is inertia, and there is darkness. This all is tamas. So what is rajas? Rajas is activity, action, wanting to do something. There is attraction and repulsion. So there is raga, dvesha, highly there in a rajasic person. Okay? And sattva is the equilibrium. So suppose you draw a triangle, then one side rajas, one side tamas, and the top will be sattva. Sattva is the balancing force for activity and inactivity. So how do we understand? It's like a rajasic person. It's like midnight and does not want to sleep. Like so active, I can't sleep, I will do something on the mobile, maybe I'll read a book or do something, but restless. So suppose this person sleeps on time, 10:30. So action throughout the day and sleeps around 10:30, 11 and gets up around whatever, 5, 5:36, then it is sattva. But restless, unable to sleep, and maybe sleeping during the day, we don't know. So it's a combination, rajas and tamas, sattva is missing. Sattva is pure balance of both action and inaction. So person sleeps on time, eats on time, rests on time, works on time, that is sattva. So what it brings sweetness, calmness, and gentleness. Why? Think about this. Sweetness, calmness, and gentleness. For us, it's really challenging. There is less sweetness, there is less calmness. Why are we not calm? Oh, I need to meditate so that I will become calm. Why? Because there is so much rajas. Then we say, no, I'm not doing much. I'm just sitting on the sofa. But inside, see, rajas is not with the body alone. Mind. So rajasic mind, rajasic, tamasic mind, and sattvic mind. Physically, it's okay. We can guess or judge. But mind, it's tough. It's really tough because somebody could be sitting very calmly and maybe doing, we'll say, Hari kitna shant hai. So, but inside lot of, big time action movies going on and we don't know. We can't make out. So then, and there are some people who will be doing that in sleep also. They'll be fighting in the sleep and they'll be speaking in the sleep and they will be restless in the sleep also. So that is again rajas, which is not directed, I can say. So best thing is do lot of action during the day. See, we are reading Swami Vivekananda. There is no way that we can escape action. And this is Karma Yoga. So he'll just call out. He'll say action, action, action. But with rest, with stop. Like we say in the mid-noon or maybe in the mid-afternoon, take a 15 minutes nap. Especially it's said for women. But we have no time. So we are rushing, and then calmness is gone. So at least after lunch, maybe 2:33, if you're not working, then it's a good time that you take only 15 to 20 minutes nap. Our problem is, I'll take a nap and it becomes a sleep. And then it continues for 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours, maybe 1 hour. Night, I can't sleep only then. 12 o'clock, and I'm counting sheep, and I'm counting God knows which mantra I'm chanting. Bhagwan, मुझे सुबह उठना है, मुझे सोने दो. And when in the afternoon सो ही रहे थे तो that time तो Bhagwan was there only ना. So then understand that we need to have discipline and regulate everything so that if you just fall on the pillow, like the head falls on the pillow, within maximum 10 to 15 minutes, you're gone. Then you'll say, yeah, I तो dropped dead. You know, ekdam thak karke. That's also good. How do you wake up? But if you wake up with good energy and feeling like, oh, this is another day, I have so much to do, and very happy and peaceful, calm, gentle and sweet, then it is sattva. But suppose you sleep, oh, I drop dead like a log in the morning, but when my children ask something, I get very irritated. Khatam. Then there is no sweetness, calmness, so sattva is missing. So all of us need to check what we do is chalo chalo. We will start cultivating sattva in our life. It doesn't come. Sattva is not something I cultivate. Sattva is something that arises when my rajas and my tamas are balanced. So what should our focus be? Proper action and proper rest, not inaction, proper rest. So then we'll be in a good place and naturally balanced as sattva. Okay? So this is the trick that we need to understand. Tamasic person, he has given more characteristics. There is inactivity, there is dullness, and there is laziness. And the other one is superpower, manifestation of energy. And the third one, the sattva, is sweetness, calmness, gentleness, which are due to the balancing of both action and inaction. So in all creation, okay, in animal, plants, men, we find the more or less typical manifestation of all these different forces. Now this force, this, what do you say, Triguna we say, is there in nature only, Prakriti. So we cannot say that, oh, this one is purely Rajasic, this one is, yeah, maybe purely, but technically all three are there in all of us, continuously. Like some moments you'll be feeling a lot of peace and calm, and that is the Sattva moment. And there are times when you're feeling so active, and there are times when you're feeling so lazy. So then you have to check what's going wrong in your lifestyle. That's the only issue. That whether you're sleeping on time, resting on time, getting up on time. No, but it's weekend. आराम से उठते हैं. Finish. Then until Monday, you will be in trouble. Because Saturday, Friday night was late. Saturday morning you got up late. Sunday morning you got up late. Sunday night you can't sleep. Because maybe you also took a nap in the Sunday afternoon. Then Monday you can't get up in the morning. So keep a routine so that the mind is peaceful, calm and gentle. So action and inaction have to be in good balance. And that all of us should do it by ourselves. Because each of us is living different life. So based on your schedule, your lifestyle, whatever you're doing in your life, you have to do that. Suppose that day there is a lot of work, then make sure that you take a rest in between. Like I've seen people who say, "Ye khatam karti hu, ek baar just finish this, then I will rest." So I've seen women, especially even men to a large extent, that, oh, I need to just finish this email and then I will have my lunch. Now I just need to sign this paper and then I will have the lunch. And the lunch is 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And by then they're frustrated. Then you take something and then they will blast for no reason. Because hungry. Actually are hungry, actually tired, mind is stressed. So there is no way they're going to respond, they're going to react. This applies to all of us. So if you're usually eating at 1:30 and you push it too much, that I'll finish this work and then I'll eat, I'll do that and then you're going to be in trouble. So try to, suppose it's unavoidable. At times, some things like suppose your boss is in the meeting and he's not letting you get out. Probably he had an early lunch, okay, 12 o'clock, and then he makes you sit till 3 o'clock. But I have observed that all offices give biscuits or something. Eat something. Just put something in your mouth so that you are not frustrated or irritated. Don't think, oh, that lunch is so good now after that. So I'll wait and then I'll have, by then you'll be upset. So don't push things. Try as far as possible to do things in their time. So that otherwise, see, food is not the only thing. Food is one of the things I'm saying. But there are other things like I'll clean this kitchen and then I will do, resting. After I clean the kitchen and room and everything, I will rest. And by then, somebody comes to the house or somebody says we'll have tea or something and then finish. Then there is no rest. And by then, you're already irritated and frustrated. Why? You didn't get those 15-20 minutes of relaxation. So then you have to force yourself that this is my time, nap time. Don't disturb. Keep all the phones away and put some nice flute music or meditation or something. Lie down as if you're doing it in Shavasana. 20 minutes, you have to get up. That's your rule. People will say, oh, she's so tired, let her sleep. No, no, no. Tell everybody after 20 minutes, if I don't get up, then come and disturb me. Because that's the discipline. Okay? All these external things, even food to a certain extent, helps us because if you eat too much, then you want to sleep and you can't get up in 20 minutes. So then eat light meals, several times a day. Or we are not Kshatriyas. We are not going for a war, right? And we don't need that much fat in us, like fatty foods and all, They used to eat meat and cashew nuts, a lot of heavy stuff for them to be, very strong and be able to do whatever they needed to do. We are not doing anything. We are sitting in a car, maybe, or in some auto or taxi or whatever, going somewhere, doing something, coming back. We need to eat less. Lesser we eat, healthier we are. And less means, I'm not saying less in the sense that I will eat only one meal a day. No, don't do all that. Reduce portion size. So take small plate. Don't take big plate. Take small plate. Little eat. Usually what most of them who are working will do is lunch small. Breakfast small, dinner, arey, this is the only meal I am getting, ghar ka khana, chalo. The whole spread we will eat and then we'll be dozing off at any point of time in front of the TV and then 10:30 you'll get up and say, oh, I'm supposed to sleep, na? But then sleep will evade us. So be very, very careful. This is something which each of us can balance by ourselves. No need for anybody to balance. And for that ghar ka khana, wait for the weekend and eat in the afternoon. You can afford to eat little more in the afternoon, but at night, eat less and less. And lunch you can eat, breakfast you can eat, nobody is stopping us. So they say, eat breakfast like a king and lunch like a, what, I don't know what, queen maybe, and maybe the dinner like a pauper. Ours is pura ulta, dinner like a king. And then we have all issues, acidity, and God knows what issues. So you have to be careful about that. Now we'll see basically in this whole para, understand that these three gunas are inescapable. It's in all of us. If I want to remain calm, peaceful, gentle, then I have to keep balancing my action by keeping it in a good. Some people say, oh, she said less action. From tomorrow, I'm not going to do anything. No, do enough action and little bit of rest, and then you'll be fine. So it's not equal. Okay, it's not equal like 12 hours work, 12 hours sleep. No. 12 hours you can work. Sleep is around 8 hours. Okay. And you're still left with 4 hours. Do your scriptural study. He says in Karma Yoga, we have to especially deal with these three factors. What are these? Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Okay. So by teaching what they are and how to employ them helps us to do our work better, right? So we understood quite a bit how to manage. Next is human society is a graded organization. So then he has slightly shifted his talk here. He speaks about morality and duty, but at the same time, very truly, he says that different countries there are different morals. Like in some religions, they say only one marriage. In certain religion, they say 4 marriages are allowed. So 4 times a male can marry and stuff like that. It's all different in different religions, and it's moral also. It's considered moral there. So it's always different. So depending on which society we live in, we adapt as humans. So then he also cites that in especially in South Indians and Tamilians, and I've seen all that even in Karnataka also, they marry their uncle's daughter. Okay, and this mama ka beta beti whatever. So this is a very close relationship, actually a sister actually. If you think about it, it's a cousin sister that they marry, but it is acceptable in this culture. But in certain cultures, they will say, what? You married your sister? That is also there. So then it depends on which culture it is and what that culture is following. And it seems to be moral there. But the same thing in another religion, like we could say, what? 4 times marriage? No, no. One is correct. 2 also doesn't sound good. But for some people, no, but we are allowed to marry. It's very clear in our religion. So then we have to see the name of the chapter is each is great in his own place. So we cannot judge. So if the culture says it's allowed, it's allowed. That's it. So we accept it. We cannot be like, oh, how? No, it is their culture. They are not asking us to do it. See, when somebody tells you that you do this because it's my culture, then you can fight. Then you can say, no, I want to do what my culture says. You do what your culture says. So to each his own. Each his own. And each is great in his own place. So for that, respect and acceptance for all the cultures. First, this was morality and duty also. The standards, as they say, of morality varies greatly. Yet, we all should agree that there should be some universal standard of morality. So in this universal standard of morality, I always say that what we learn in our Vedanta class or other classes also need to have basic ahimsa, telling the truth, non-violence, some cleanliness, some goodness, and all this is mandatory. So this is human qualities, nothing to do with any culture. Okay, so this we need to check and do that. At least the base human quality should be in all of us. And then depending on which culture you are adapting to, you can take it. If you change your culture, you can adapt there. So human mind adapts. There is no problem for that. So next third paragraph, who wants to read? Yeah, Devi. Now we'll go reverse for a change. So what is the state of life? State of life is whether you're in your grahastha, whether you're in your vanaprastha state, or whether maybe sannyasa, which is rare, but kind of sannyasa, or you're in your brahmacharya state. So all of us need to check, and depending on that, we need to be doing our duties also, which we are not, because we are supposed to be, especially after 50-55, men, women, all of us should slowly withdraw from our complete family attachment. We need not leave and go anywhere, but do not interfere in the life of the son, the daughter-in-law, or maybe the daughter and the son-in-law, the grandchildren, and let them allow to do their life. If they are in trouble, they will come to us and we'll give them solution. But we are not supposed to interfere. They are supposed to be taking care of everything. And we, the 50 plus, 55 plus, 60 plus, should just be doing meditation, learning the scriptures, maybe attending satsangs, maybe going for kirtans or havans or whatever. That time is for self-introspection. Or maybe you like to do sevas, so you can go and serve somewhere, maybe the mentally retarded, maybe whatever, see, you're free. So that's the time when you're free for yourself. But we don't take that time. We are still entangled. We are 75, we are 80, we are 85. We still want to be into all the, stuff. So he is saying clearly, important thing is to know that there are gradations, like, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps like that of duty and morality both. There are some duties that a 45 or a 40-year-old or a 30-year-old should do, which a 60-year-old is not liable to do. Like taking care of the child. 30 years, yes, you have to take care of your child. 45, yes, you have to take care of the child. 50 plus child is already 16, 18, 20. They should learn to take care of themselves. For sure. And by then you will be slowly withdrawing. Not, I've seen that men are 30 and the mothers are still feeding them, serving them and struggling, back-breaking work. It's not necessary. Do not make the mothers work after they're this age. Okay? Ask them to relax, ask them to do the little bit of, help or something. But let them not be still feeding their sons, especially sons I have seen, even daughters nowadays, that the mothers are pampering the girls even after they are 40 also. Whereas that's the time when they were supposed to take rest and the children were supposed to take control. We have to leave our control. We are not leaving. And maybe the children have not learned to take control because we are not leaving. And then we say at some point that they're not doing anything because you didn't tell them to. You have to let go. You have to tell them it's your responsibility, you do it. Finish. And then see, they'll make mistakes. We also made mistakes. So then, depending on which, state you are in, you have to do what's required in that state. We can't do like at 70, I will say at 20, I was doing this, so I will do this now. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. The body ages. Everything ages. So we cannot do what I was maybe, hanging from somewhere or maybe bungee jumping or what not we do when we are 20. There's so much rajas in us. But when we are like 65, 70, we have to calm down slowly. So it's not about not doing an activity or not doing an activity. It's about being calm and doing what you're supposed to do in one particular age group. So the priority is technically Vanaprastha means turn inwards. So not totally, but maybe 70-30, like I always keep saying, 30% live your life with the family and everybody. Enjoy, do what everybody is doing. It's fun. 70% your time. You have to make a list of activities that you want to do once you touch this age. And that's usually for women, menopause, and for men also nearing retirement. So they do get depressed. Abhi kuch nahi hai, kaam nahi hai and stuff. But they are supposed to leave that work, relax and spend time with their spouse, go for walks, go for kirtans, go to temples, do all this stuff. When are they going to do it otherwise? If all the time they're going to be working. So it is struggle. Nobody teaches us that at one point we are supposed to let go. It's like, marte dam tak, I will be working. And I feel it's great. Yeah, they should be, everybody should be working. I'm not saying that it is all okay, now we'll sit and only on the sofa and tell ye leke aao, wo leke aao to all. No, 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 that's not what we are speaking of. We are going to do all our actions by ourselves. And we are going to work on staying healthy, first thing. And second thing, not become a burden on anybody because we aged. So this thought process starts early. That's why I'm telling you all. It's not कि 55 हो गया अभी सोचते हैं नहीं. You have to start when you're maybe 30, 35. Look around what's happening. Oh, I don't want to get into this loop. I have to stay in the knowledge. I have to do this. I have to not to do this also. So we should know what to do and what to avoid. Okay, so this was the gradation set of circumstances, and basically in one set of circumstances will not and cannot be that of another. So the duty of one state of life will not be the duty of another state of life. Like I'm taking my child to school. Okay, that's your duty. But you're 65, 17, you're saying I'm taking my grandchild to school. What are your children doing? What are your children doing? So then we put the responsibility on our older parents. That's also not correct because it is their time. They are supposed to do what they wanted to do. They did everything for you. Now you do everything for your children. Don't push it on them because then they will miss their vanaprastha, which they were supposed to do, whatever they wanted to. Right? Imagine yourself doing the same thing, not getting your time, your special time when you want to meet friends and chill around and maybe attend satsangs and enjoy and feel peaceful and meditate. And your child says, "Look after my child. I'm going to work." It's not fair, right? So think about these things. This is what is one state of life. Duty of one state of life cannot be there in another state of life. Okay. So then the way we go reverse. He says, two ways are left open to us. The way of the ignorant who think that there is only one way to truth and that all the rest are wrong. And the way of the wise who admit that according to our mental constitution or the different planes of existence in which we are, duty and morality will vary. Now, here slightly has touched upon religion, wherein in certain religions they say that we need to just read the scripture. That's it. This is our God and this is everything. Don't believe in anything else. So that's too restricting. So in our culture, with the grace of God and the divine, we have too much choice. We could be reading scriptures, we could be doing seva, we could be, visiting temples, we could be religious, we could be chanting. We have too many options. Unlike other religions, it's challenging for them because they are supposed to do only one thing and they have to do that. Okay, for us, I don't know whether it's a blessing or a curse, but because we have so many options, we barely do anything. We end up probably not doing anything. For them, they have only one. It's like I have one dress, one uniform every day. I have to wear the same thing. Chalta hai. But for us, it's too much choice. Even like I could go to the Gurudwara, not being a Punjabi, and nobody is going to stop me. I would love to be with the Sikhs and Hindis, they have their own script. So then we have no restriction. We have no restriction. We can listen to anything. We can go to any temple. We can worship any god. We have choices, any deities. No, I am a Vishnu follower. I am a Shiva follower. I am a Shakta. I am a Devi follower, which is fine. So depending on what you feel is good for you, you can just take your path. He says, those are the way of the ignorant is where they say, this is right, that is wrong. Like somebody comes and says, no, all have to read only scriptures. Nobody should do karma yoga. Nobody should do bhakti yoga. That doesn't work. We have to pass through everything. And we have choice also in our religion. And what he says, yeah, there should be some common universal idea of duty. There should be there. And there is, like taking care of the family, right? Studying and educating first few years, then taking care of the family, then next, one by one, everybody has their own culture. Like if you go to Europe and maybe other places, the children, when they are 16, 17, 18, they are saying bye-bye to their parents and leaving. And we're like, my God, abhi to bachcha hai. But they will feel, arey, they are grown-ups. What is an 18-year-old doing in the house? He should be out by himself. But that is their culture. So then we start aping them, that even we could do that. See, it doesn't work. Depending on which culture you are, how things are going, you manage your life. And they manage theirs. If they say a ha, hu, then you keep quiet. And when we say a ha, hu, they have to keep quiet. To each his own. You have to constantly remember in this chapter, each his own. At the same time, food habits will be different for different people. There will be a meat eater and there will be a pure vegetarian. We shouldn't scoff on anybody. Nobody is less, nobody is more. They have been brought up in a culture where they are eating. We have no right to say that you stop eating. Then when we say, they will say, what? Why should we stop? We were brought up eating this. So whatever anybody feels is their culture and they are going well in it, they do it. That's it. Unless they come and ask you, I am not comfortable, what should I do? We should not open our mouth and we have no right also. After that also, we personally don't have a right. It is, we can only give a suggestion like a friend. But otherwise, to each his own. So each one will have their style, their particular way of eating. You know, we have nothing to do with different cultures. We respect, we live. We do what is fit for us in our culture. So then, so it is with duty. It's different in different nations because he used to tour almost half the world. He has toured, Swami Vivekananda. So he has seen so many cultures, so many things, so much. We actually cannot even imagine what and all he must have seen in different countries. And everywhere he must have gone different culture. So then he learned from experience also. Like he says, in one country, if a man does not do certain things, people will say he has acted wrongly. But in certain places, like in certain places, they will say, yeah, the child has to go out by 18. And then we will say, no, no, it is wrong to send the child out at 18. But it is their culture. So people will say that he did not act rightly. And yet we know that there must be some universal idea of duty. Some basic universal idea should be there. Like suppose in one place I'm driving on the right side, the other place will say, Arey, how you're driving right side? Here we have to drive left side. Oh, so then depending on the rules of that place, we have to follow. So everywhere they'll be different. But the universal rule is like, if you're in this country, this is the rule and you have to follow the rule. You can't say, but back home, it is like this, I want to do like this. It is, no, it doesn't work. So that's why he's saying there is some universal idea of duty. Like basic, like somebody is maybe fallen down, we have to help them. Somebody is met with an accident, we can support them. And these are basic universal duties. And there is no two says about it. We have to do it. That's about it. The culture and all we can understand. But this universal duty is common for all humans. Basic human nature. Have to follow that. Okay. So now comes the most interesting part of this chapter, which is resist not evil.